Okay, in today's lesson what we're going to do is take a model that we've constructed in Sculptris and we're going to transfer that across to ZBrush or ZBrush using the GoZ function. And when it's in ZBrush, what we're going to do is then convert it into a usable format so that we can edit it and continue to sculpt it using ZBrush. So first things first, I'll load up a model, and I'll just load up the model that we constructed in a previous tutorial set, which you'll be able to find on the this YouTube channel. So this is our little elven female character, and you can see that the geometry is actually constructed from triangles, as all geometry is in Sculptris, and this means that in ZBrush we're going to have to convert these to quads to be able to successfully sort of sculpt this using ZBrush. So with the model loaded in, I'm just going to hit the GoZ button, and it has brought it in as a tool over in your tool palette. So with that tool selected, I'm just going to drag that out, holding down Shift to orient it, and then either hit the T key or click the button to edit object. And you can see that we have now got our elven head in ZBrush. If we turn on Polyframe, you can see that it is still constructed from triangles, and if we wanted to, we could sort of sculpt based entirely on the way that it is here. And you can see that symmetry works. Everything sort of works fine for the most part, but if we divide using the Control D, you can see that what actually happens is that these triangles, and I'll just zoom in so you can get a better look, the triangles actually get I suppose trisected into quads, which can create very sort of unpredictable geometry when it comes to sculpting, because it comes up with some very sort of strange results when we go through polygon flow and those sorts of things. So rather than work with a triangulated model, there are a couple of ways that we can turn this into quads. So first I'm just going to go to the subtool, and you can see that it is only one subtool, and we have eyeballs as part of this model. So I'm just going to come down to split and split to parts, and it isn't undoable, and that's okay, we don't need to undo it. And now you can see that we have the eyeballs here. I'm just going to switch those off, and you can see that's our actual model that we have, or the actual head geometry. So now I want to convert this into quads. So first I'm just going to duplicate this this model, and then I'm going to try a couple of things. The first thing that I want to do is come down to geometry and come down to Dynamesh, and I'm just going to click the Dynamesh button, and you can see that we have converted our model into a Dynamesh model, and I'm just going to switch off the original. Now the good news is that we are now constructed of quads, or mainly quads, and they are sort of usable in a ZBrush format. The bad news is that we've lost quite a bit of definition here. So what we can do is, first thing that you can try is the resolution is quite low. So what we can do is bump this up to 256, which is twice the resolution, which means that that would be 4 times as much geometry, because each polygon will be... Actually, I'm not sure if that works for Dynamesh. That might not be true for Dynamesh. At any rate, it's up to 256, which should be twice as much sort of definition of details. Now, if we drag out a mask in empty space, you'll notice that it doesn't update the entire mesh automatically. That's because it actually waits for some changes to be done. So I'm just going to pick a part of the model that I know I'm not going to really be worried about, and so just that little bump there is enough to register that there's been a change made. And now if we drag out a mask, you can see that we have much more geometry, but the actual detail is still following what we originally created. So what we can do is, if we come back to our subtool and we unhide that, and then we come down to project and project all. And now if we go back up and rehide the triangular mesh and go into Polyframe, you can see that we have brought in quite a bit of that detail, and we are still in that sort of quad format. So with that done, you can see that we now have something that is workable in ZBrush, and because we've been using Sculptris, we can find that this can be quite a good sort of transition for us. If you're used to Sculptris, if you've started on Sculptris and you want to break into ZBrush, this is a good way to sort of to actually try things out from a ZBrush point of view. And what I'm just going to do is drag out a neck, like so. Doesn't have to be perfect, and it is far from it. And then I'll just undo that mask, or delete that mask. I'll bring my draw size back down. I'm just going to smooth that. And a lot of these keys are the same in ZBrush as they are in Sculptris. The one thing that I miss a lot is that in Sculptris you can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel, and you can't do that in ZBrush. You have to hold Alt and drag, and that's because it's built to sort of use a stylus rather than a mouse. But I'm still using a mouse because that's the tool that I'm using for these tutorials. Now the neck's coming out quite a bit there, so I'm just going to up my draw size, just sort of make it more feminine and less like a bodybuilder. I suppose you can be a feminine bodybuilder if that's what you like. And so now there we go, and we have all of these stretched out polygons, and you'll remember that in Sculptris these would be automatically converted into new polygons, but because this is ZBrush and we're using Dynamesh, it stretches out the polygons, and when you're happy with the overall shape, you drag a mask in empty space and then it remeshes. So it's sort of like Sculptris with that sort of polygon flow. If we turn off that, you can see some of that form a little bit better. I'm just going to smooth out these striations and a little bit smoother where it joins onto the head. And so there we go. That's one way to sort of bring a model into ZBrush and convert it into a ZBrush mesh. Now the other thing that you might want to try, and I'll just hide that and bring that guy back. Actually, I'll just switch to this one, and I'll get it right sooner or later. Okay, now I'll just duplicate this guy off again, and one of the new features in ZBrush 4R4, which is something that you absolutely have to try, you've got to give it a go, is Curie Measure. Now, so we have the original sort of triangulated head here, which we could sort of, bring straight across from ZBrush, from Sculptris, and just using the default settings, let's give it a go with the Curie Measure. Now I haven't changed anything. I've just let it do its thing straight out of the box. Factory settings. And there we go. Now, the most amazing thing about this Curie Measure is that it, like the Dynamesh, it converts it into quads, but it also turns it into this flowing polygon form that basically acts like a base mesh, like what you would have if you constructed this very carefully, polygon by polygon in Maya. And I'm just going to make sure that we have that switched off. Now you will notice that, like the Dynamesh, we have lost some of the detail around the eyes there, but it will sort of respect topology, like the inside of the mouth won't get closed off, which can be a problem with something like Dynamesh. Now, looking at this geometry, and that's just the factory default, the settings that you've got, and it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? It looks like a flowing sort of quad-based construction, and you can see that we've got quite a bit of detail here on this nose. But what I'm going to do is undo that, and we're going to change a couple of settings in Curie Measure. Auto mask. Okay, we're going to change one setting in Curie Measure. We're just going to try that. Let's see how that goes. Okay, now with the auto mask feature enabled, we are getting a little bit more sort of geometry around the eyes. That nose just looks awesome. It looks perfect. And we are getting sort of a little bit more detail where we need detail. Now what we can do instead of the auto mask is, if we just undo this, we can come in and we can actually draw a mask around the things that we want the detail to be more maintained over. So what I'm going to do is make sure that the eyes, that nose, these lips, and how do the ears look? I can't remember. Well, I'm just going to make sure that I do that as well, and I'm just going to tap the mask just to sort of even out the edges a little bit, and with the mask drawn in by hand, we'll try it with Curie Measure. Okay, so with that mask drawn in by hand, you can see that we're getting even more detail around the areas where we need it. The eye is almost as good as when we brought it in, and now our active points are 17,000. To give you some idea, the original mesh, the active points were 52,000. So this has basically reconstructed a base mesh for us from geometry that we've brought in with like hundreds of thousands of, well, you know, a lot of polygons. And we've now constructed something which has a lot fewer polygons. The great thing about this is that we can then divide this mesh, and that takes us to 68,000. And then if we just make sure that those are the only ones that are visible, and come down and project all, and then hide that guy again, you can see that our resulting mesh is pretty close to the original, and as well as that, it has a lower level, and you can construct this base level, this QRemesher base model, to have quite a lot fewer polygons, and it'll result in more and more levels that you can gradually step up to, and just project your final Sculptris details onto the top detail level. So I'm just going to go back up to that, and you can see that we can now, if we come in with like a standard brush and come in with an alpha like this and drag rectangle, that we can now sort of use all of the ZBrush functionality in order to come up with whatever we would normally do with a model like this. And we can also divide it again. So yeah, so that's the absolute basics, really simple overview of how to get a model from Sculptris into ZBrush. And you can sort of, once you have like your Dynamesh model and you have the topology that you want, you can then go in with the Curie Measure and retopologize and construct a base mesh like this. So yeah, really powerful tools. So thanks for watching.